Thanks for the introduction. Anyway, I understood nothing, so whatever you said, I get it.
Naturalmente, scusi, l'ingegnere farà un intervento in lingua inglese e poi per favorire un po' la diffusione dei contenuti ci sarà un commento finale su quanto
I have my own translator, so we should non è necessario. So anyway, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I could have done actually the presentation in Italian, but I'm afraid that my English, even with a French accent, is much better than my Italian. So we will do that way. So I'm very pleased to be there and to get the opportunity to speak. So the two previous presentations were more related to polyester fibers themselves. In that case, we are more going to give some information about chemicals, which are eco-friendly chemicals, to be used on fibers in general and particularly on polyester fibers. So in the presentation there are four parts mainly. So the first one is related to Archroma because we are a relatively new company because we were born only 1 year ago, so that was 1st October 2013. The second part will be more related to the recycling of PET, but I will not go deeply into the details because that's not my specialty, and the two first persons spoke much better than me about that. Yeah. So the main point that will be more the third part regarding eco-friendly chemicals for PET. In that case, mainly polymers, flame retardants and repellents. And the last point that will be other possibilities that we will describe more into details at the end. So Archroma, who are we? So we are a global leader in textile, paper and emulsion. Archroma was born 1 year ago after the divestment from Clariant of the textile, paper and emulsion business. In that case, when we speak about emulsion, that is all what is related to paint application, to adhesives, to coating, to construction application. So it's something relatively different to textile and paper. Textile, but the main advantage is that in those three different business units, there are quite a lot of synergies because we use, generally speaking, the same type of chemicals. So that is the main point. So from a historical point of view, we have a long background as we are coming from Clariant, and Clariant itself was coming from Hoechst and Sandoz, so we have quite a lot of big background. One of our strengths is that we work very well side to side with customers. That means that our policy, our strength, and particularly for what we call technical textile application, that is to develop some tailor-made solutions to our customer. So that is something that we can do, and I think that it is a one advantage compared to some other chemical suppliers. So in the textile technology, so we are covering all the textile chain, so that means from the fiber production to the finishing application, so I belong to the finishing part, and even to the branding and retailing, because we have also some marketing part, which have some regular contact and deep contact with the main brands worldwide, so like Decathlon, Marks and Spencer, quite a lot in Italy too, yeah, Adidas, so everything. So we are able to covering all the different steps during the textile processing. So like chemicals for the spinning, the weaving, the pre-treatment, all the dye stuff or pigments, so for the dyeing and the printing, and regarding the finishing part, so all what is used for technical textile, like polymer, fluorocarbon resins, flame retardants and so on, but also more the softener parts and other products, other additives. So the sustainability in Archroma, so we are highly committed to sustainability. First, because of the background in Clariant, because that was not the case, but that is all what we do today is orientated towards that. And when we speak about sustainability, that is obviously not just about eco-friendly chemicals, but that is related to all the textile process. That means that it is, okay, the wastewater, so how to reduce the quantity of water on the wastewater during the processing, also the energy, how to reduce the energy you need to process. So that is, I would say, a full package between energy, water, and eco-friendly chemicals. So we are member of Textile Exchange and Sustainable Apparel Coalition, and we are also we have some quite strong collaboration with bluesign, because we are a system partner of bluesign. All what is related to Ecotex, we have some chemicals which are registered in Ecotex, GOTS for instance, and lots of many. So Ecolabel, Advantage. So sustainability is really one of the key factors in our company. Yeah, one of the pillars. Regarding recycled PET materials, so as I said before, that's not my specialty, but that is more to do the link between Archroma and that type of fiber. So today, just a few data, so polyester fibers that represent 40-45% of the global annual production of fiber. The PET production is energy intensive and it's based on petrochemical mainly. And about 65 or 70% of the total PET production is used for textile application. And the remaining quantity is used more for bottles or for what I would call plastics. So the different steps, that the first one are the sorting, so that's clear that the collecting and the compacting, because that, it makes no sense to transport some hair, so you have to press and to compact to optimize all the process. Regarding the processing, so you have first the mechanical recycling, and after that the chemical recycling, so particularly molecule breakdown and so on, so a very chemical name like glycolysis or methanolysis. The main point during the recycling of PET, that is of course the purity, because that has a direct impact on the performances of the PET fibers afterwards. So during the processing, you have to get rid of all the contamination, so which could be macroscopic physical contamination, like some small fragments of glass, stone, paper, glue, and soils. The microscopic physical contamination in that case, so more difficult to remove, and also chemical contamination, because depending on what you got before in the bottle, if you got some oils or some surfactants or something like that, you have migration into the polyester, and you have to get rid of that during the process. So the end-use markets for recycled PET, so the first one is sure the fiber. In 2011, 39% of recovered European PET was used to produce polyester fiber. So those data is coming from PETCO, which is an association for the recycled PET. So those fibers are used for weaving, for non-woven production. That is also a big part of the use of the recycled PET fibers, either alone or mixed together with the standard polyester fibers. They are also used for fillers, for upholstery, for anoraks, so as alternative to polyurethane foam in that case. Or, like indicated during the first presentation, they are used, the flakes are used to produce some spun-bonded non-woven, which is a specialty here in Italy of Freudenberg Polytex. So all non-woven which are used for building, for geotextile, for filtration, shoe lining, and even automotive application. And the second use of the recycled PET is some preformed plastic bags, some containers for drinks, and so on. So, regarding the eco-friendly chemicals, so that is clear that today the market requires more and more eco-friendly chemicals for textile and technical textile application. The main demand today is coming from the non-woven industry. So we, as Archroma, we offer already a quite big range of technical textile, technical chemicals, so include for polyester materials. So in our case, that is mainly for text applications with polymer dispersion, flame retardant, and repellent agents. So in that case, either fluorine-based repellent agent or fluorine-free repellent agent. So below, that summarizes a little bit what direction we are following regarding eco-friendly chemicals. So for the polymer dispersions, we are working more and more on formaldehyde, so initially on ultra-low formaldehyde, but today even on formaldehyde-free polymer. The second direction for eco-friendly chemicals, that is to use some renewable raw materials. For the flame retardant, the main topic is always halogen-free flame retardant. And for the repellent agent, so to develop some products which are PFOA and PFOS-free, or even to develop some fluorine-free chemicals to get water repellent effects. Regarding the formaldehyde, that is a long story with the formaldehyde, and sometimes a little bit surprising, knowing that formaldehyde is a natural chemical which is already emitted in the nature. For instance, per year, trees and vegetables and so on, they generate about 10 million of tons of formaldehyde, and the chemical industry is generating less than 1% of that quantity. But nevertheless, the formaldehyde has been recently reclassified, and so that is EC 605 2014, and it has been reclassified as carcinogenic category 1B and mutagenic category 2. So that is clear that that new classification, so which will be active from the 1st of April 2015. There are some rumors telling that maybe it could be postponed till the beginning of 2016. But globally, that will impact quite a lot all the chemicals which contain formaldehyde. And today, in textile industry, there are quite a lot of chemicals which are containing formaldehyde. I mean, you have the polymers, you have the chemicals for non-iron finish, you have the melamine formaldehyde resin, and so on. So quite a lot are touched by that new regulation. So that means that from the 1st of April, if any mixture or formulation which contains more than 0.1% of formaldehyde, so that means 1000 ppm, will have to be classified or indicated as H350, so may cause concern. So, as the things are always very complicated with the European community, at the same time, in fact, they are revising or reharmonizing the risk phase. So all what was R something before, like R45, so it becomes H something. So it's even more complicated to follow that. So even by the IARC, which is an international agency for research on cancer, so it is classified also as carcinogenic to humans, so 1. Most of the exposure limits are going to be reduced. So when we speak about exposure limits, that are what we call the TWA, so which is the average concentration that you can find in the air during an 8 hours working shift, and the STEM, which is the maximum value you can find during that time. So most probably there will have also some reduction of those limits. So, but anyway, there is a global trend today which is to reduce the formaldehyde, or even when possible to avoid completely to have some formaldehyde in chemicals. So in the case of the polymer dispersions, where do we have, or what are the sources for the formaldehyde? You have first the cross-linking system that you use in the polymers. which are mainly used to get water resistance or solvent resistance and so on of the polymer, so which are based on the N-methyl acrylamide or metacrylamide. So generally speaking, they bring into the product about 500 to 1,500 ppm in the product. You have the reducing agent, which is used at the end of the process to reduce the residual monomers in the product. You have the biocide, because sure, water-based product, you have to use some biocide to avoid the bacteria contamination and so on. And eventually, you have the cross-linker if based on melamine formaldehyde. So the most complicated to modify, that is the cross-linking system, which is used for the water and solvent resistance. Formaldehyde, when we speak about formaldehyde, that's clear that you can find formaldehyde in different steps in the process. The first one that is in the product itself, the second one that is in the application production site in the air, or in the emissions outside, or on the substrate after the application of the chemical. So in that case, most of the time, or what is very common for textiles, so that is the Japan law 112, so which is used for potency. So in our polymer range, we have already quite a lot of different formaldehyde-containing products. Knowing that the standard self-cross-linking polymer, they contain already less than 1,000 ppm, so they will not be impacted by the new classification of formaldehyde. We already developed a few years ago some ultra-low formaldehyde dispersions. So in that case, we do not speak about formaldehyde in the product, but more formaldehyde on the substrate after the application, so which is less than 16 ppm, according to the German law. And the new development is clearly so to develop some self-cross-linking dispersion, but completely formaldehyde-free. So from a technical point of view, as I said before, the most complicated, that is to remove the standard formaldehyde-containing cross-linker which are in the product. But there are some technical possibilities using other chemistries, but knowing that most of the time that is more expensive, that is less efficient, it's more complicated to copolymerize and so on. So the main target is to find the right compromise between properties and everything. But it exists today with epoxy group, alkoxy, hydroxy, and carboxy. We can get similar properties but with formaldehyde-free products. And what is also done quite commonly, that is if needed to improve even the water, wash, and dry cleaning resistance, you can even use some additional formaldehyde-free cross-linkers, mainly based in that case on the polyisocyanate chemistry. That works particularly well, and that is a good combination to get a formaldehyde-free system. So as you see, we have already some products which are available, so depending on which are used in various applications, mainly for non-woven, so like automotive, filtration, building. We have also some products based on that formaldehyde-free concept, some products which are based on special monomers like vinyl versatate. Because I guess that most of you know what is acrylate, styrene, and vinyl acetate, but vinyl versatate, that is a special monomer which excellent properties coming more from the paint industry. So that comes back to the beginning when I say that we have some excellent synergies between the different business units within Archroma, to take advantage of experiences in paint application to transfer those into textile or paper application. For polymers, the second way that we are following, that is all what is biopolymers. So biopolymers, when we speak about that, that means clearly that you have first to know if the product is based on renewables or on petrochemicals. And the second point, is it biodegradable or non-biodegradable? So depending on the chemistry, you can get some non-biodegradable petro-based chemicals or biodegradable based on renewables. So the target from our side, that was actually to get some polymers partially based on renewable raw materials. So in that case, we use starch as a raw material. So we do not speak here about simply adding in a polymer a starch solution. That is ready. We cut the starch molecule and we do after that grafting, so that is really a copolymerization. So that brings some interesting properties because you have lots of hydroxy groups in the polymer. So for further cross-linking that helps. There are nevertheless some limitations because starch being a stiff polymer, so to produce some soft polymer based on that chemistry is complicated. You may have some thermal yellowing, and it is also sensitive to alkaline hydrolysis. But globally, there are some application fields for polyester woven which are interesting with those products. So there are already 3 products. We have even some products which are more also linked to paper application when we need some food contact compliance and so on. So that is the second direction that we follow for eco-friendly polymers, so to work with renewable raw materials. Regarding flame retardant, which is the second point, in that case, that is clear that today the trend is to work with halogen-free flame retardant. So from our side, we have already banned halogen for a certain time, and all the flame retardant for polyester or for other fibers so are based on the phosphorus chemistry. So when we say phosphorus, that means either phosphate, phosphonate, or phosphinate, because you have different possibilities. And depending on that, you have different type of product and different type of end use. Here, I don't go into details, anyway you will get the presentation afterwards on the website, but that will summarize a little bit what are the different effects that you have to get the flame retardant properties between the gas phase, the condense phase, or the physical effect. So globally, from a chemical point of view, as halogen-free flame retardants, so you have different types, so like water-soluble, which are non-permanent, based on ammonium polyphosphate. You have the organic cyclic phosphonate, that is typically what is used as a permanent flame retardant for polyester fiber. You have, and after that, you have all the polar grades, which are used in that case not alone, but automatically in combination with the polymer dispersion for coating application on polyester to get different effects, so either based on polyphosphate or on phosphinate. So that summarizes a little bit what type of halogen-free flame retardants are available today for polyester fiber. The third chemical, so are the repellent agents. So most probably you have all heard about the PFOA and PFOS story. As we need to reduce, or we have to reduce the perfluorooctanic acid and perfluorooctane sulfonate, which has been proved as being persistent and toxic. So that are those 2 chemicals. So the story came from a few years ago from 3M. Today there is a trend to get rid of, not only a trend, but regulations to get rid of, to eliminate completely all repellent agents, fluorinated polymer, which may contain those type of products. So knowing that there are already some regulation, particularly between Europe, USA, and Japan, to reduce strongly the quantity of those byproducts in the fluorinated polymer. There will have some additional restriction during 2016 in Europe, and from a commercial point of view, all products which are based on the C8 chemistry, so which may generate those PFO and PFOS, they won't be anymore available in Europe from the beginning or after 2015. So that means that we all have to be switched to C6 products. So that summarizes when you need some water repellent and oil repellent effect. So water, the type of chemicals you need, because the choice actually depends on the effect you need. If you need water and oil or just water repellent. So for water and oil, the only possibility today is to use actually some fluorinated polymer. So in the future, only based on the C6 chemistry. And if you just need water repellent, in that case, you have the possibility to switch to some other fluoride-free product. Typically, what is done today by some brands, they have removed completely, or the tendency is to go forward to the fluoride-free product. So that you have those two possibilities. So that summarizes again. And as we are short in time, so the last slide. So as we speak about polyester, you have also some chemicals which are based on polyester chemistry. So in that case, to get 100% polyester finished material, so you have some stiff polyester resins which can be used as stiffening agent for movement, for filtration, for instance, or you have some hydrophilizing agents for polyester fibers, which are also used quite a lot for moisture management and so on, which are based on the polyester chemistry. So globally today, the conclusion is that there are quite a lot of possibilities with eco-friendly chemicals for polyester fibers, and I think that in any way that is a trend that will continue in that direction. So that was from my side. Davide, I think maybe you want to say a few words in Italian.
Volevo ringraziare l'associazione sempre, ma oggi ancora di più, per averci invitato ancora una volta a parlare di sostenibilità. Avevamo iniziato questo percorso già l'anno scorso, il tema non era il poliestere, a novembre con il One Way, parlando di sostenibilità, e oggi ancora di più, e devo ringraziare anche da questo punto di vista la Comunità Europea, che penso non abbia rappresentanti in aula, per aver accelerato la nuova regolamentazione in relazione al formaldeide. Perché questo? Perché se da un certo punto di vista mette un pochino in difficoltà i nostri clienti, che sono i clienti fornitori di tessuti, però ripaga di 15 anni di ricerca le aziende chimiche. Io ricordo brevemente a metà degli anni 2000, quando con Olivier visitavamo i fornitori di tessuti e tessuti non tessuti dell'automotive e presentavamo i primi Apretan E, quindi gli ultra low formaldeide, venivamo accettati con riservo, con sufficienza, perché 1 centesimo nella supply chain dell'automotive è un costo importante. Oggi ho il piacere di dire che dopo 10 anni uno dei polimeri presentati in questa presentazione è già presente su un'automobile che sta per essere venduta, che è già venduta, naturalmente è stata appena lanciata, una automobile francese un po' particolare. Quindi il prodotto è stato omologato, è presente sul mercato. Ricordiamo che capitolati di produttori tedeschi prevedono formaldeide all'interno dell'abitacolo per i tessili sotto i 10 ppm, tutti i tessili che vanno all'interno dell'abitacolo. Quindi vi ringrazio. Quando vorrete invitarci a parlare di ambiente, sicurezza e sostenibilità, sfondate una porta aperta, perché noi verremo sempre volentieri.
Grazie Davide.